can move up the board,
Think
taking
we
out the
agree
knight
now.
from the center. Easier to play
27.
short term for Magnus Carlsen. Alireza, he still needs to consolidate his position.
I think your points are
26.
absolutely spot on here. It's the psychological impact and, if you like, the psychological win of going into your opponent's plan and then throwing him off his game. I mean, 9 minutes plays 6.5 in a game where Firouzja is white and wants to win straight away. Like, to what extent is this going to really damage his preparation for any future surprise weapons he has against Magnus? If this is the response, wow.
Exactly. There are only so many weaknesses in an opponent's opening arsenal and their repertoire. You have to try and target them, but if you walk into something they've studied, that really is a bit of a blow. That being said, the clock situation, we've seen it so many times before. Alireza Firouzja down on time. Even at the 1 minute mark, though, he's a beast. He plays arguably better than anyone if it gets down to a time scramble. At any moment in this match, got to favor the younger player here, though he will be trying to keep his time advantage, Magnus Carlsen.
He does need to drag Magnus down to 1 minute as well to show him that advantage, though. He's got 1 minute and Magnus has 5. Not sure how good that's going to be.
That's the tricky part, to make these greats think. But he has forced Magnus to pause for the first real time with this last pawn push.
The strategy for Alireza in this match would be surprising if it is to win out of the opening. He's playing against Magnus. How do you even prepare against a guy like that who plays everything under the sun? The aim would be to just get a position, a playable position, which has got those messy tendencies, that little chaos on the board, the complications where he forces Magnus exactly to come where you are. Under 1 minute on the clock, where Alireza, I think he believes he's perhaps even faster than Magnus if that was to appear with all the... maybe not all, with as many pieces on the board as possible and as much chaos as possible. That's when the match gets truly even.
That's going to be the goal, right? If we see both players get down to a situation, they say have less than 90 seconds on the clock each, and it's a relatively equal position dynamically, but lots of play, Alireza becomes so dangerous. But if in the process of forcing the time down, Magnus is already in a better position, then the plans become easier, it's easier to convert. Even if you're slightly slower, the path to victory is clear, and that's what Alireza needs to stop. The path to victory should never be clear for Magnus, because once he sees it, it's like a homing missile. There's no stopping him.
Exactly, that's why he's so good in the endgames. He knows exactly what to aim for, Magnus Carlsen. In the meantime, this position is fascinating. Give back an extra pawn to Black, make it level material, and Magnus has the advantage. Black has the bishop pair, Black's central pawns look glorious, but he does have something to suffer for Alireza, having his extra pawn, and it's just a question of whether he can make it count. The white king in the corner not looking extremely comfortable here. Black's light squared bishop staring at it. Magnus is smiling on the camera in the meantime. Fascinating stuff. He must love his position, but the material imbalance must give Alireza some hope here, Tanya.
He's thinking about his bow and arrow right now.
Already?
He's loading up.
Early days, but you know, he got that first shot in.
He did.
And that's something. Or will, you know, Alireza be flying high, fast and precise? Fast, he's not currently. Behind on the clock by about a minute. Magnus, meanwhile, lines up the queen on the G line. Alireza brings his queen closer to the bishop, perhaps trying to neutralize that bishop pair that Magnus has in compensation for the extra pawn. Bishop c5 was the idea, was the threat. You might see it being played out, even though Magnus can now decline the trade after moving the rook away.
That's the one thing that Alireza wants. Since he is a pawn up, he wants simplifications, whether it's bishops off the board, rooks off the board, maybe even queens off the board. What Magnus wants is some kind of attack against the white king. Magnus will avoid trades at all costs if he can. And there we see, as Tanya predicted, the bishop trade offered. Dark squared bishops coming off the board would be disastrous for Magnus. It would reduce some of his attacking potential. Gonna dodge that, surely.
You can't afford to trade it. Allow the queen in. Beautiful square for that queen. You can't give up your bishop pair. It is the big initiative in the position that Magnus has. But where do you move it to? And he does step away. He answers the question. Bishop to f6, always eyeing that e4 break, which would further open up the diagonals for his two bishops.
White has the potential for a d4 break, but I'm so scared every time I look at this, because I think if White has a strong way to respond with e4, I'm worried that the position could blow open in a way that maybe the white pieces don't necessarily want. We could be seeing this played out on the board.
Things are about to heat up right now. Felt like both sides were just maneuvering To my eyes, it actually looked like Fallujah was maneuvering slightly better than Magnus here. It felt like Magnus, Black Rook, the Black Queen, not quite coordinating with the rest of their army. So Fallujah deciding to strike. Again, trades here help white. Magnus exchanging this pawn, he will not be happy about that if that comes to pass. If you don't take it, that white pawn might just continue advancing.
Attention, the board.
We do advance. Okay.
Fallujah do the same. He does. He kicks away Black's light squared bishop from its nice post. Magnus pausing. He could take the white knight. We could start seeing a tactical sequence akin to what we saw earlier, game 1, where a bunch of trades happened in breakneck speed. But no, Magnus prefers to retreat. He's going for the white king, while Alireza just wants to consolidate his extra pawn.
This gives the time to Alireza to retreat his own bishop, again trying to target the trade that he really wants of the dark squared bishop. With the move bishop d4, it could be the moment to use that to blunt out that bishop, take away any possibility of bishop takes knight as well. Lots of options for Alireza, but he needs to keep one eye on the clock, or at least half an eye on the clock.
1 minute difference isn't so dramatic right now, but if we keep saying that every game Fallujah's behind on time, then it might add up by the end of the day. The case earlier, when he blundered, he was slightly behind on the clock, and he won't want that to repeat, as he does retreat his bishop.
Exactly. Spot on, Tanya. We have the d4 square occupied now by the white bishop. Again, trying to force the exchange of the dark squared bishops here. I suppose there is the potential for black to take on f3 first, if we want to spice things up a little bit. Not 100% sure who that's better for, though, because even though the bishops are on the board, you swap one pair off and you've got the g-file. And you know what? Black's pieces are pointing menacingly towards white's king, but at the same time, if the g-pawn disappears, a rook can swing across to g1, and it becomes a bit of a double-edged sword.
Let's show that variation. Let's try and get inside Magnus Carlsen's mind on the analysis board here that we've got up. E takes f3 is the critical move. White here has to recapture. You cannot trade bishops, no time yet. But bishop takes bishop here would have allowed an in-between move, a check on the white king. Now black will trade off, gain the bishop at the very end, level material, and the white king a bit open. Black's bishop probably better than the white knight with pawns on both flanks. At the very end here, though, this is happening. After g takes f3, the white rook sliding across to g1 is white's big idea. Black, in the meantime, is trading off pieces. Let's go back to the game because they're playing exactly what we predicted. The black bishop trying to get active. But in the meantime, white's rook opened up on the g-file. Who is this going to favor? Balbar says white, but clock says black. I like this for Magnus, I've got to admit. I think Fallujah's done fantastically well in order to establish a bit of control here in the center.
I think that central square that you're alluding to, once the knight jumps to that point, the rook lining up on g1, suddenly the bishop pair gone, the knight getting stronger, 4 versus 2 on that left flank. C-pawn starts marching up the board once the knight is out of the way. Also, let's point out, Magnus's last move has a threat. Queen takes pawn in the air, so knight e4, he's inviting him to place it in that beautiful spot, also countering the threat.
I'm guessing that's also part of the reason why the black pawn protects the e3 square if black wants it with a rook. Not sure there's enough time to do that, though, because of the c2 pawn being potentially weak, and also because if the knight jumps into e4, there's a real risk that you end up with a rook on the wrong side of the board without support.
But you know, Alireza, he's not playing the most natural move quickly. There's something about knight e4 because it's screaming to be played. You know, it's the hand move, or in this case, the mouse move that you really want to rush into playing. But he doesn't like something about it, David.
I don't really see why not. Maybe it's the fact that the black bishop has the ability to challenge the light squares. Either way, Alireza, he's tanked for too long on this move. The difference on the clock is telling. They say a pawn is worth a minute. Now he's currently almost 2 minutes down. Magnus is going to be gaining in confidence the longer this position doesn't see a move. Alireza really needs to pick up. It feels like this final so far. There we go. The most natural move just took too long.
Like, it took too long. Bring
Hey,
the rook.
Magnus instantly ready with his response.
And that's the problem. You take that long, your opponent knows exactly what he's going to play to the first move that comes to everyone's mind here.
It also signals to Magnus, Alireza has been in the tank. He's thinking about an alternative. While your opponent's time is ticking down, you get to have a think yourself about what other moves he was thinking about, which means later on in the game, you're prepared for those ideas, and you've used your opponent's time to come to that realization.
Exactly. Best players, the most practical players in the world. they have all these little tricks to save a few seconds here and there. Magnus, look how zoned in, how focused he is, despite the fact it's not his move. 2.5-minute time difference now. To either move that knight or defend it. It's that simple.
I'd be staring at the RGB on the key.
No, just
Be too
defend it.
distracting. I don't think I could handle it. More pieces piling on the knight on e4 now. And look at the time difference. 4 minutes plays 1:20. This is becoming critical for Alireza.
He's trying to desperately calculate here with this remaining minute. What will happen if black next move takes this knight? You can take with the bishop, maybe even with the rook, and tactics will start to land on this board. The white king in the corner is very, very vulnerable. Endgames might be imminent, but Firouzja just doesn't have time to work them out. He's spending way too long. 1 minute versus 4 now.
Put the rook
He's
here,
thinking
bro.
for far too long in this
Bro,
game.
put
I
the
mean, this
rook
is just
on- put the rook
unbelievable,
on
right? Because we're on move
G1.
27 and the biggest decisions
Put the
lie
rook
ahead
on
right now.
G1.
Magnus Carlsen, he might be down
he's
upon, but
down,
he's not
bro,
going to
come
make
on.
your life easy. Now there are tactics. This is
Come
what you
on.
need to think. And the board goes red, the clock goes red for Alireza.
He's so
Move.
ready.
Come on,
He's so
you
ready.
have to move. Push your pawn to d6. Do whatever. Move a rook. You are
35
fine.
seconds.
You have
He's
20,
frozen.
30 seconds.
Alireza Firouzja freezing there, making a rook move. And look at this counter strike by Magnus Carlsen, taking the white knight off the board. Double exclamation mark. He's counterattacking against the white queen. Look at what's about to happen. All the rooks coming off. White's 2 rooks are forked there. One of them had to give their life up. Magnus has equalized this endgame. It's level, but not on the clock.
And Magnus is now going to play to flag Alireza Firouzja. His rook, the more active one. Magnus about to pick up the d5 center pawn. He's just thinking, does he throw in the check? He decides not to. And that is Magnus Carlsen thinking to himself, he knows this is a draw. Is he going to play for dirty flagging with 26 seconds for his opponent?
Have to be ruthless here. If you're Magnus Carlsen, do not let your opponent off the hook. Firouzja, if the shoe was on the other foot, he would be playing for time right now.
3.5 minutes versus
Nice,
26
yeah,
seconds.
high,
At this
high.
point, it's not dirty.
Yes,
It's
high.
expected.
He plays
Bro,
on. He
Firouzja,
100%
bro,
plays on.
come on.
He's going to play
Firouzja is
this
not
on
good,
even with an hour on the clock. It's an end game. You know, he sees the imbalances and look at that. He thought he'll force Alireza into a think about this and Alireza makes a wrong decision. This is what happens when you have no time on the clock against the world number 1.
Exactly. It's easy for black to create a pass pawn on the right flank on the king side, 3 versus 2. Very difficult actually for white's 3 to mobilize because black's 2 doubled B pawns hold the fort. The white 3 cannot bypass them. The black king is coming. It was actually better there for the black B pawn to push even further. Very natural move though from
Your
Magnus.
time is
Alireza
wrong,
simply
bro.
physically does not have
It's
enough
over.
time to finish
It's
this
over.
game.
It's
Under
over. It's
20
over.
seconds now.
It's
Some big
over.
decisions still
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, there's no
Magnus,
magic
bit of a
in
shake
this
of the head. Firouzja there, echoing that. Same for him. He knows he's going to get flagged.
One of Firouzja's biggest strength is just the number of moves, the sheer number of moves he can get in under 20 seconds. But this position, where every move needs to be
No time
calculated,
increments.
every mistake can be a losing move, that is hard. 17 seconds, David, Magnus gets this done.
You would say that, but Firouzja, this last move is fantastic. The white king is holding the black king. It's keeping it honest. If the black king ever gives way, the white king steps forward. Firouzja with 16 seconds. It's actually quite an easy draw now. But does he have time? That's the big question. Magnus has
16
really
seconds.
slowed down.
This would be god-level hold by Alireza Firouzja if he manages to save this king pawn ending with only 15 seconds against Magnus.
Magnus smiling because he knows it's a dead draw. There's no way through for the black king into the white half of the board. The black king can try all at once, but there's no path forward, and the kings are already starting to dance.
It's a fortress.
Ah,
And a repetition.
Draw by repetition. 2 minutes and 2 seconds. Plays
It's not an
14
anime, bro.
seconds, but we were
Yeah.
reduced to a position where all Alireza Firouzja
Yeah.
had to do was move the kings backwards and forwards. An attempt was made to see if a mistake could be forced under time pressure, but Alireza hold. Magnus Carlsen, 1.5. Alireza Firouzja, a half.
That was bizarre. That is Magnus being
Alright.
merciful, I've got to say.
Alright,
He could have played that
alright.
position on for 50 moves.
What again?
Could have desperately
What
tried to flag
again?
Alireza. White could do
Yeah,
nothing.
what
He
a
could just
draw.
move the
I
king
mean, like,
around
the
the board.
time
But
combo, bro.
Magnus letting his
The
opponent
time
off the hook.
combo,
Will he regret that later,
94%
Tanya?
accuracy was played by
That's the
each.
big question, and only time will
94.6,
tell. But I will say that was a
94.6
god-level save by
I'm
Alireza
telling you.
Firouzja. And there was
I'm
that moment
telling
when
you.
Magnus, not only on the clock, but on the board, was completely winning. These last few moves, yes, technically a complete drawn ending. Black having no inwards, no path towards that victory. Alireza had built that fortress. And this time turns out Magnus believed in those fortresses.
Yeah, the way that we got that dead drawn ending was anything but dead boring. It was a very exciting back and forth game. Ultimately, though, It means that a win in the next game would take the first set for Magnus, but we need to get a full point in order for that to happen. So right now, set 1 continues. We will be resuming with game number 3 after this break.
Okay. So as she meets, all right, yeah, it's my voice coming out now. I'm like, can you hear me, bro? What a draw! What a draw! Okay, yeah, I think my voice is okay. What a draw it was. I mean, Alireza Firisha was coming. I was already feeling bad for Alireza Firisha because I wanted it to. I mean, yeah, let the game be like a very tough one. Don't just give Magnus Carlsen easy win. He already beat you in the first game, and he's going to do the same thing on the second game. It's not just going to be fun. Alireza do something, and some way somehow he was able to hold a draw. I think he was playing for the win, but he hesitated a little. He spent so much time. Like, he spent too much time, and yeah, he couldn't just recall. Like, he was down to 18 seconds. Bro, Magnus Carlsen was having a lot of time, 4 minutes to 18 seconds, and he was somehow by miracle, like, should I say by miracle, he draw. Yeah, I think when he was down to 18 seconds, I think Magnus Carlsen shouldn't go on trading all of the stuff. Like, he should keep his pieces because he's low on time. So certainly it would be easy for a 4 minute to flag an 18 seconds, 18 seconds Firisha, but yeah, these guys are beasts, bro. I don't know what could have happened. And again, so I guess Magnus being Magnus, he did what he knew how to do best, and now he's leading 1 point, 1.5 points. Alireza Firisha with just half points. Let's see what the next round is going to hold. Crazy game, bro. This is really tough. This is really tough. STC? Oh, what a game. What a game it is. Wow. What can I say? What cup is this? Okay, this is what it's all about. This beautiful cup. Bro, you are a good commentator. Oh, thank you, bro. Yeah, thank you. So I mean, this is the goal. This is the goal. This is the medal. I mean, these two beasts are fighting for. Alireza has been on his toes throughout this entire tournament. Like, he's the only guy that have not actually lost any game during the tournament. And bro, he's here to face the best in the business, Magnus Carlsen. How is he going to be? If he's able to beat Magnus Carlsen, he's just going to be overwhelming. Like, he's going to be very, very happy. I guess this is Saudi Arabia, right? Like, this tournament is held in Saudi Arabia. What a match it has been. All right, so let's hear from.
What's your name?
What is going on?
Musa bin Thali.
And I understand you're not just an average fan. Who are you?
No, I'm the head of the Olympic Chess Committee,
Okay.
handling the chess players in Saudi Arabia.
Okay, yeah.
He's head of the Olympic Chess Committee, and he still has to wait in line like the average fans do. We got to get you some special connections. But tell us, who are you rooting for, Team Liquid or Team Falcons?
Falcon, of course, but I'm enjoying the general competition.
And finally, I mean, the best chess players in the world came to your country. Hasn't happened in many years, since 2017. What's it like to have all the top players here?
Absolutely fun times. It is fantastic opportunity for every chess lover in Saudi Arabia and the surrounding countries to come and see. It's a unique tournament. People are playing with a historical game in a futuristic manner. We all love it.
Arabia.
We're going to get back inside. I've been told it's hot even by Saudi standards. You don't want to lose your place. That's what the action looks like from outside SNB Esports Arena.
Yeah, this is Saudi Arabia. Like, the tournament is being held in Saudi Arabia. So yeah, I guess it's going to be okay. Hello? Yes. Yeah,
We have started the grand finals here at the Esports World Cup. We are deep into the first set. 1.5-1/2, the current score in favor of Magnus Carlsen, the world number 1. Each set is a best of 4, the first 2 anyway, and if needed, we will have a best of 2 in a deciding set. Right now, A full point for Magnus Carlsen will clinch the first set. A draw will mean we still have to keep playing. And of course, a win for Alireza Firouzja will mean we are all square.
And there we see is the heart rate monitor being adjusted. I'm sure the heart rates are through the roof. I know they are here in our
Being
caster
adjusted.
studio.
Can they adjust mine down? That'd be great. I need like, maybe some like an app control or something. That'd be really handy.
That would help because you need to keep your nerves in these matchups. And for Alireza Firouzja, he is a point deficit in this set one. But it's early days, 2 games in, and I think that second game you could feel, even though Alireza was in trouble at the very end, took too much time, but at least he found the rhythm on the board. Now, he needs to just make sure he doesn't come down on the clock the way it's been. I think he's got to up his time management.
Has been a weakness of his, Alireza Firouzja's, in classical chess and rapid chess, that he does spend a bit too much time in the middle game, and just not leaving himself enough leeway in the ending. There, he escaped, but he will not escape too many times in future.
The clock looked okay up until the point in that late middle game where suddenly, over the course of just a couple of moves, it felt like Firouzja tanked, what, 2-3 minutes? Which is maybe fine in the first 12 moves if you have some sort of surprise. Definitely not if it results in 4v1. I mean, those are the kind of odds that you that you see chess players giving each other in social settings for fun when you're trying to beat a weaker player, for example. It's not the kind of thing you want to be doing at this level.
What do you guys think? The jackets are off. The gloves are definitely off in this finals. But
Oh, yes.
is he going to put that back on? I think not. That usually means he's ready for a fight in this one. Alireza Firouzja is. But he'll start with the black pieces. What is going to be his game strategy in this one?
Well, it's a must-not-lose game, right? It's a kind of set point for Magnus Carlsen. He strikes with white. He reaches the 2.5 point mark out of 4. That means he wins the set. Alireza with black just needs to do what he did in the first game up to a point. Just not blunder that rook in the corner. I wouldn't be surprised, actually, if Alireza repeats a similar opening. It was semi-successful. I would say a draw, not the worst result. Alireza will fancy his chances with white more than he will with black.
Meanwhile, Magnus not amused with the delay.
Looks
He's
like
ready to
there
get going.
might be a little bit of an audio issue, but it looks like, to be honest, it looks like it's doing okay and that it might be resolved very shortly. So this is game number 2. How we got to this position, it was a wild game.
Wild game. Magnus sacrificed a pawn early, got the bishop pair in return. We saw some early exchanges, and ultimately it was around here that Firouzja started to tank. But when the dust settled, we got to a rook endgame, even a king and pawn endgame that was temporarily winning for Magnus. In the end, though, he had to settle for a repetition, a draw. Firouzja had no time, but Magnus had no way through.
He had no way through, but he could play that position on forever, and ultimately Firouzja would have flagged. I think Magnus, he's also such a sportsman. I think somewhere he just couldn't get himself to continue in that position, knowing that on the board, there are no inroads.
Maybe it's a bit of a gambit. Magnus not trying to flag Firouzja there. If it comes down to a later game when the shoe is on the other foot, maybe he's hoping Firouzja doesn't try to flag him if it's a dead drawn endgame.
I mean, oh, come on. We've got $250,000 and 1,000 points at the Esports World Cup Club Championship at stake here. Are we reliant on charity? Are we reliant on mercy? Nothing. Everything is earned, David. You're right. I can see it potentially happening. I think maybe Magnus recognized that all the pawns on the 3rd rank meant that you could just shuffle the king. And at that point, it was like, fine. But I don't think you want to be giving away favors here.
But Magnus has done that before. When his opponent has blundered with a mouse slip and lost on the spot, he sort of returned the favor in the very next game by doing exactly the same, just to level the score and saying reset, let's go.
Let me suggest something subtly different. Magnus does that because he is so certain that he is going to win over the board. He is so certain that under normal circumstances, without the mouse slips, without the mistakes, without the flagging, he would win anyway, that he gives it back not out of mercy, out of confidence.
Possible. It's possible. Who knows when it comes to Magnus Carlsen? Very mood dependent. In the meantime, we see the Caro Khan defense. And here, black setting up with the Fianchetto, white doing the same. Alireza played this queen move against Nodibek Abdusattorov. He used it just yesterday. Just the day before, even in the quarterfinals. And Magnus pausing. That shows of homework, I'm going to say. Magnus should have been studying Alireza's games. Pause here, surprising.
best think there by Magnus after the queen move. I think what he wants to do now is think about expanding, not in the center, because if you push the d pawn, you're opening up Alireza's sniper on g7.
Yep,
But he
right.
wanted to go b4 next, which now has been stopped by Alireza with that last move a5, so not allowing. And I was thinking this is not going to happen, but Magnus says game on, d4 on the board. This is going to be maximum tension, a 4-pawn stare off.
Not going to let me play b4, then fine, let's do this anyway. I wonder how this is going to end up for the players.
A lot of choice now for Alireza. He can resolve the tension immediately. He can capture one of White's central pawns, or he can wait, maybe develop the knight that hasn't yet entered the action. The way Alireza now has been surprised Magnus with the jacket off. In business, maybe he had studied this before. Maybe just that pause was to recollect things, lull Firouzja into that false sense of security. We do see a trade. Magnus takes back with his knight, not giving himself the big pawn center, maybe reluctant to get isolated pawns there. But now it looks like the whole center will liquidate. It's going to be symmetry a bit later on. And it's going to be about who can profit from that scenario.
So many knight jumps once that pawn trade at the center of the board happens, because pawn takes pawn will definitely be met by the knight recapturing.
Right.
You know, Alireza isn't going to give a weakness at the center of the board. We can expect then Magnus's knight jump at the center, or will he just do Magnus things? One move that Magnus loves to play is pushing the h-pawn forward. Whether he's castled the king or not, h4 always on the cards. Modern chess, when in doubt, play h4.
What do you foresee? Is it going to happen? Is Magnus going to resolve the central tension or play on the wings?
Big question. Does he want to keep the tension right now or add to it?
I don't mind Magnus or anybody else. I just want to see h4. So I'm very, very keen.
I'll
for
say
this to
one thing
happen.
though, John. If h4 happens, I think Alireza stops the advance. You really don't want that pawn to go all alpha 0. In this case, alpha Magnus on you with h5 coming in and then a potential h6.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. I think the logical response to h4 is h5, admittedly. And then from that point onwards, it's a little bit harder to get super excited about it because the follow-up to build that kingside attack, especially with the bishops pointing at the queen side, might be a little bit more difficult. But h4 certainly worth a try.
No wing play against the Falcon yet. That it's some knight action as we.
So guys, I left the stream. Please, is Magnus Carlsen playing with white pieces here, or he's playing with the black pieces? I'm not sure. I just want to find out. Please, can you let me know in the comment, please?
Tempo against the black queen, which is forced home. Now the white knight on c4 is hit.
Okay.
Side. Magnus seems in very good spirits. Don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for Firouzja.
Usually that's a bad thing. You know, Magnus is the strongest player on the planet any day, but when he comes in a good mood, he's enjoying his chess. He knows he's up in the match already, feeling the floor in his position. Now, he's taking a decision. Does he go aggressive with his knight? Knight d6? Or is he going to have a more cautious approach? Just come back to the center of the board. Knight to e3 was what I was going to suggest. Then I just realized that knight e3 is probably the one square you don't want to move it to. That bishop on f4 would have been trapped, but look at that.
Oh, hello.
Magnus Carlsen inviting a lot of complications. Bishop d6.
Like,
That's a double attack. It is a fork on the black rook and the black knight. Magnus now looking up to the skies. He's pretty much forced Firouzja here to take his knight. The white bishop's going to take the black knight. Taking the rook would have led to a material deficit for Magnus. 2 pieces against a rook. So now it's level material, but the black rook can save itself. Don't know why Firouzja is pausing here. Rook to e8 is the most logical move in the position. And against the bishop pair, Magnus.
And that's the surprising part, right? He's also helped Firouzja get rid of that problem in the center, the pawn that was there. And now after all these trades, it's going to be Firouzja getting his bishop to h3 with even potential checkmating ideas. The kiss of death on g2 if the queen and the bishop can line up against that white king. This is going to be Magnus on the defense for a long time.
Right, the fact that that king feels
Magnus
just a
is
little
playing
bit
with the white.
airy
Okay.
in the long
Yeah,
run
I think
doesn't feel comfortable. Not necessarily hugely advantageous.
I think Firouzja has a better advantage here. Like he has, I mean, the last square bishop of the last square is weak around the kings of Magnus Carlsen, so it's just going to be a very and Magnus Carlsen is low on time here. Firouzja has 7 minutes. Magnus Carlsen is having 6. It's going to be a tough one. I wish Felicia good luck on this round. I wish he win. Like, I mean, let the game be tight and let's go on.
This is, again, just the beginning, just set one, but still plenty of action ahead. The white queen comes out. I was going to at least suggest that Magnus tries to get the queens off the board as soon as possible to avoid any checkmating ideas. Magnus doesn't look happy in the meantime, reacting somewhat there. Position still in the balance, despite the fact black does have those hugely potentialed bishops.
No, I think it comes down to the sequence of moves that just happened with the trades of the knight center of the board. Magnus kind of with a smile putting the bishop forward. But at the end of it all, when the dust is settled, Magnus realizes that this is not what he was aiming for. You know, as you evaluate this position, and look at that, we were talking about h4, it's Alireza on the attack.
All right.
Magnus has to stop it. He does, but it further creates those light square weaknesses. Now the bishop can plant itself on g4.
Yes,
There's some
exactly.
development.
Exactly. Yeah, the bishop is coming. Bro,
Really
there's no need to
the light square
hesitate on
bishop
this one. Just plumb the
at some
bishop
point.
there.
You can't move the b pawn. You can't play b6 because the queen would take the rook on a8. Please, not for the second time in this match. But you move that, and then where are you going? Do we get the queen out first? Oh, unfortunately, the rook on e8 would then get taken. Want to move the bishop out instead to e6 or f5? Well, guess what? The knight's there to gobble it up. It's actually not super clear how Firouzja completes development and continues on this game, even though his position looks comfortable right now.
He's going to have to calculate. He's going to have to be very concrete about his mode of development here, Alireza Firouzja. One idea would be to bring the bishop out, as Tanya mentioned, and if the white queen captures a pawn and on the b7 square, the black rook will slide across with some action of its own on the b file. It's a long sequence going through his mind, Alireza Firouzja, trying to prove here that the bishop pair is the superior piece configuration, but it's not going to be easy at all. And let's just show that on the board for everyone at home. Bishop to g4 is the move he wants to play. He actually plays his rook out, which is very surprising, but bishop to g4 would have allowed the queen to capture a pawn and the rook to slide across. And next move, when the queen retreats, rook takes pawn on b2, or sorry, after maybe a rook trade, and this would have led to some big complications. But maybe we go back to the game, because this was something he wanted to avoid. The bishop would have had to retreat. Instead, Magnus desperately trying to offer a trade of queens. We saw two different types of positions there. Firouzja choosing not to set the board alight. He's going more positional. Maybe now forced to trade. Not going to drop the c4 pawn.
And I don't think it matters if Alireza has a clear sequence of moves that gives him advantage. He just needs to keep this imbalance of the bishop there. He needs to make sure that as many pieces as can remain on the board. And this is the kind of position where he needs to bring Magnus to that bullet territory. That's when his odds would increase. While saying that, he first gets the queens off, now puts the bishop on g4, hits the knight, aiming with that rook lift to activate it further. But even in this endgame, I think that's his plan. Just bring Magnus down on the clock. He's got something to play for here.
Trying endlessly to avoid playing
Magnus
the Magnus-style game, moving the queen away in the last game when the queen trade was offered. This time around, he's saying, look, relatively equal on the clock. Let's actually get the queens off the board and see what we can do.
Brings his rook up. He's actually aiming to shuffle that rook across to the b5 square and go for white's queenside pawns once the bishop saves itself. Very, very sneaky from Alireza. This is a bit of a genius move, I'm going to say, because he's actually allowing what looks like a desirable bishop trade for Magnus Carlsen. The bishop could have gone to d4, and the black rook sliding across would now have been super effective. Let's say a bishop trade happens, and you cannot defend your b-pawn, since the black bishop drops back and hits the white rook on b1. The pawn on b2 would have dropped next move. Magnus Carlsen instead forced onto the defensive. The white bishop has been sidelined. And yeah, this just looks grim for white, although maybe with the rook trade, he's going to hold it now.
You know, the bar says this position's level, and I think the rook trade, it will happen because you really want to put your rook on f5. You're not only putting it on this really weird square, but also taking away the escape route of your own bishop.
I mean, just trade.
After rook takes rook, the big question is how much does Alireza believe in his chances, and does he play on this position? Very close to a Magnus hold this one. And I think that would be a relief.
If Magnus Carlsen would draw this one, like, what? He's saying he should take?
Might be the case where Magnus would start believing in fortresses himself. The rooks come off. Bishop to b1. That's the idea that I would be concerned about. That a2 pawn, how are you defending it?
All right. Bishop
And
B1.
it takes 2 tempi as well to move that pawn too. So I wonder what's going to happen here and whether that is simply the line. Is there maybe a counter punch somewhere that
Just
White
play
can do?
it.
Or is this
Bishop
one of those
B1
situations
Bishop
where
B1. Bishop B1
even
just,
if
I mean, if he
we
can
have a
get
pawn imbalance
pawn-
and we go a pawn up, it's not enough to convert?
Pretty sure Magnus has missed this, by the way. I don't think he's seen this idea. I haven't seen a reaction on the camera from him yet. He's trying to keep a poker face, but if that move lands, Magnus is going to have to scramble to try and hold equality. Eval bar still says 0.0, but not obvious how White holds that one.
That would be Alireza returning the favor from game 1. It was the B8 square the knight
No!
landed on in game over.
Yeah,
If for some
Bishop
reason
is-
Alireza decides to
Yeah,
keep the balance,
yeah,
doesn't
if I'm
put his
playing this, I'm
bishop on
just going to
B1, but
remove
it's a
this
threat that
knight.
you need to watch out for. Magnus's knight gets active, stopped that check on E7. Alireza brings his king forward. David, this is not as simple as it looks for White.
This is horrible for White. It's a 2-result game for everyone at home who might be wondering what that means. It means Black should be out of danger. It's going to be either a win for Black if Magnus is unable to defend, or a draw if he can build a fortress. Very minimal chances that White wins this one.
Now let's see. And the clock
What
is
is this?
game as well. Magnus Carlsen 40 playing just under 3 minutes for Alireza Firouzja. You know what? He had 4 versus 1 in the previous game. So frankly, this is already a little bit better, but he needs to not go in the tank now.
Alireza can start dominating that knight that has jumped too far away with no squares to return. And look at that bishop on e4, the black king heading towards the center of the board, combining all these ideas. The only thing, he needs to move fast, Alireza does, for a real shot at winning and equalizing this match.
Half minutes, he's got to speed up. The
Come
heart
on,
rate has been
Alireza,
rising for
come on, do
Alireza.
this,
He
bro.
needs to, I was going to say,
Just
bring the
go
king
grab the
across,
pawn.
dominate that
There's a
knight.
free
He was
pawn,
scared
just-
of the white pawn
what
stepping
is
forward to the
wrong?
a4 square, given a question mark. But now Magnus has a small window of opportunity. He needs to get his knight out of the black camp as quickly as he can. That move hits the black bishop in the process. Magnus should be saving himself and escaping, but he has to evacuate that piece. There we go. First step. Now he'll move the white bishop out the way, and the white knight returns to safety.
I think this is a draw. This is a fortress.
That was a big moment.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
think
to
I
have
think
tried to trap
Firouzja
that
is,
knight, those sequence of moves. Again, it comes down to clock because Alireza is also trying to play fast. And that is when these inaccuracies happen. He does retreat with the bishop, and it's still level, but White's the one who's suffering in this position.
How is White even suffering?
To hit that god mode, him to start calculating with immense speed and trusting his instincts maybe a little bit more and absolutely going for it so that he doesn't end up in a situation where he risks making a critical mistake with under a minute left on the clock.
Yeah,
We need
which
to
one
see
is
that from him
free
now
pawn? Like,
so
there's
that
a
that
free
isn't a
pawn- yeah, yeah.
possibility later.
I mean,
You know what
free
he's done
pawn
with
on
this bishop maneuver
on
is to
A2,
get that
like,
critical move going. And I think
the
at some
free pawn
point,
on
G5
A2.
is the break that Alireza is hoping for. That pawn on the right side of the board moves forward, and then we might see Magnus
Bro,
stuck
just
with a
trade the
weakness
knight on.
of the G3 pawn. But he has to time it well, and time is a luxury that Alireza does not have.
Go for it. Pawn to g5. He needs to actually accelerate the play. He's being very, very patient, Firouzja. Normally, I never fault that. It's a great skill in chess, but you can't be patient with 2 minutes on your clock. You need a clear path forward, and there we go. Pawn to g5. Has he timed it correctly? He's going for it, but he's allowed Magnus to drop back with the knight, attacking a bunch of things. Attacking Black's dark square bishop and those pawns that have advanced. Firouzja shaking his head. He might have just let Magnus off the hook.
And it was all about making this move at the right time. And he didn't. Knight e4, Firouzja is about to lose his bishop advantage. To keep it, he has to now trade on f4, fall back with his own bishop, just to make sure that the game keeps going. But that leaves him with a big weakness on h5. The white knight can start targeting that pawn.
Magnus
Fixing
locks,
it.
locks up the king side.
position.
Knight move is coming. Knight to g3. Firouzja has to be careful
think-
here. He
I
needs
think
to
he's
pull the
so
break
off.
here and now.
I think he's so
1.5
off,
minutes.
Firouzja.
He's no longer better.
I
But
think
how
it's-
do you even do that? If you try to get rid of that knight, it's heading to g3 to pick up that h5 pawn. Knight g3. And I think what he wants is bishop to d7 to win that f5 pawn in return. This is what Firouzja set up. Magnus Carlsen, is he sensing his opportunity right now?
Firouzja's plan. Magnus sees it and is looking for a way forward. Ultimately, the
Knight's
eval bar
back
says
away.
0.0. It looks like both sides have a way towards a draw, but again, how hard is Magnus going to press on the clock? He moves his bishop out the way.
Knight,
White
okay.
Knight's, okay, could have
Bishop,
gone back there.
no
But
bishop,
the
okay.
king ends the pawn. Dark
Yeah,
square bishop
wh-
can't
wh-
really
what
move.
about bishop
really get
here, bishop
around.
check?
And that's what Magnus did with his bishop move, right? He
Yeah,
took
if he goes-
away all the squares that
What if-
Alireza's
what
dark
if,
square bishop
Felicia
had to
go
give a check
bishop,
to that white king. Can't go to d8, can't go to d6.
What?
Alireza comes back with his own bishop. Magnus can repeat. Magnus can bring his king back
What?
right now if he wants to stop the game.
I thought I was just going to play
Hello.
bishop
Plays
f8,
it 2.
trying to
40
play
plays a minute
bishop.
04. I think he'll
H-
probably play on a little
h6.
bit, but is there
Yeah,
a...
if Alireza play
I'm looking
bishop
for a second avenue of attack. It really does look like everything is hinging on whether an attack
bishop
against the h5 pawn
f8,
can be
bishop
repelled.
h6 should get the king
Cannot
out
let
of
the
the
black
pawn, and
dark squared
then he
bishop
should
in
be able to
Magnus
pick
Carlsen.
that
He's
pawn.
trying to make sure that he doesn't allow any counterplay. He retreats his king. This is the second time we've seen that position.
Uh-huh,
Oh,
now,
Alireza goes for the win this time. He could have forced a draw instantly by bringing
Yes.
his bishop back. He actually goes around. He's trying to check the
Yes,
white
yes.
king.
Bishop-
that is
bishop,
potentially
yeah.
very dangerous.
Bishop
Black bishop
h6.
not only will check the white king, it's
Bishop
going to go
h6 is
behind,
okay.
stacking
I
on the
miss?
base of white's queenside pawn
miss?
chain. Magnus here, he's the one who has to pull the brakes this time. This is a very scary threat he's facing.
That is huge. If Magnus allows that, the whole house collapses on the left side of the board. He's going for a counterattack of his own, attacking h5. This has suddenly become a 3-result endgame.
Oh, he's let the black bishop in. This is
Right,
really
bishop
brave.
coming.
Is it going to be foolhardy for Magnus
All right,
Carlsen?
knight
Bishop
takes
gets
one.
in. Look at the eval bar. It's dropping. It's in black's favor. Alireza's got in. Magnus is trying to shut the door with his own bishop. But is it going to be enough?
That is the big
Oh.
question. He's defended one pawn. Can he defend the other pawn? Magnus Carlsen retreats the knight to do just that. Alireza has to
Queen
activate the
check.
other bishop, gives a check to Magnus's king, falls back. 43 seconds on the clock. A minute deficit for Alireza, but Alireza is the one who's playing for a win.
Oh, I
Whoa,
don't know. That black
whoa,
dark square bishop
whoa,
on b2 is trapped.
whoa.
He holds the white king away from moving towards it for now. But
he
Alireza,
was
he's
trapped.
playing without a piece. That black dark square bishop on b2 could potentially be doomed. Magnus can just sit now. Black has no winning plan. Magnus has built a fortress. 28 seconds for Faruja. Will we see a repeat of what just happened in game 2? The players starting to move their pieces back and forth.
Or will this time Magnus Carlsen try to flag Alireza with the bishop trapped? And there Magnus, he's repeating again. He doesn't want to play on.
Eval Bar says Magnus
my
actually has
goodness,
an
it's a
advantage,
draw.
but he doesn't realize it. And
Oh,
we see a
come
draw by
on.
repetition
No,
for the second
not a
time
draw,
in this
bro,
first
not
set.
a draw. Come
Game
in, there's no way. There's no way for Alireza Farisha to continue in the game. Like I thought there's a way somehow. Wow, Magnus Carlsen is a beast, bro. He had the position, everything he had tight. There's no way. Bro, there's no way. All right.
The grand final.
All right.
It's crazy
bro.
what just
This is
happened.
a-
It
this
looks
is
like
very
Alireza was
intense
back
game.
in the game,
This
in
is
that
very
end game.
intense.
That
Like,
inaccuracy
so
by
far,
Magnus,
so
a slight
good.
head
Oh
shake
my
as
goodness.
Alireza realizes his missed opportunity there.
This
But
is
Magnus not continuing.
This is a tough game to watch. This is a tough game, bro. I actually want Alireza Farisha to somehow win one game. I mean, just to equalize against Magnus Carlsen, so that the game could be somewhat like a good game. But I think I was thinking probably there's a way for this the king to come into the position and probably get something out. But yeah, the game just ended with both side repeating move, and yeah, it's a draw.
He held it,
We are
but
going
it
to
wasn't
the next
easy.
round.
Game number 4 coming
Let's go
up,
to the
and
next one.
this is a must-win
Let's go to the next
situation for Alireza Faruja. If we want to take set number 1 to Armageddon, he now has to win on command. He has got the white pieces, so if ever there was a time to do it, it is now, but second chances.
And he needs to take inspiration from his Falcons teammate Tanya Hikaru, who struck back twice against Magnus.
And what a match that was. He needs to do just that. Not look too far away, but soar pretty high in the sky. With the white pieces, Alireza Firouzja, will he go for the attack that he did in game 2? Will we see another king spawn opening? The 2 knights defense. Will the knight move forward early on? Alireza trying to figure all that out. What will be his opening approach against the world number 1? Looking for a must-win here is Alireza.
Which is there, some Magnus fans
Magnus
in the
is
arena.
forcing
It's not just the
everything to
Falcons
draw if he
represented.
can't win.
Absolutely not. With the
Like,
keys in the
it's
background
easy.
as
He's
well,
already
they
leading.
want to see their man put the key into the trophy, grab that 1,000 points.
Magnus Carlsen is already leading with 1 point. I mean, if he draw every game, he's completely winning. So Alireza Farisha has to come up with a win. He has to come up with a method on how to win a particular game so that he can tie up with Magnus Carlsen and make this game an interesting game to watch. If he doesn't do it, oh my God. All right. Alireza Felicia now is playing with the white pieces, so let's see how it's going to be. All right, he's playing right. He's playing
As they
right.
sometimes call it, white pawn
Pushing
pushes
all of
on the
his
queen side.
pawns.
He was trying to trap black's dark squared bishop. Magnus says no. He's created a nice hiding spot for it. But this is actually something we saw earlier in the event, the clash between Wei Yi and Sindarov. In that match, it was Sindarov striking out very quickly in the center with black with a pawn push to d5, and it rebounded very, very quickly. So who's done the better homework? Is this position going to favor? Full of tension. A good choice, I think, by Alireza Firouzja, keeping all the pieces on the board in West to strike back.
Again, these openings, so much about the nuances and the subtleties of where your pawns are, where your bishops are placed. Will he move it back to b3? Will he bring the rook next to that central file? Magnus has done his homework. He doesn't go for that d5 break, so which was premature earlier on in the game. And h3, taking away bishop to g4. No pins there. Magnus retreats with his own bishop, and we see thematic plans being played out here.
Now, Magnus Carlsen is
Very
just
standard
going
stuff
to
for the
launch out
Italian
with some of
game.
his pawn.
They're all about maneuvering up until around move 20 when things often start to open up. But for now, one black knight is landing on the g6 square. Those two black knights are going to act as guardians of the black king, maybe leaping forward if given the opportunity to attack. And normally the white knight does the same. It echoes by going back to f1 and parking itself on b3. Only then will they decide what to do with the center, with the rest of their pieces.
Usually in this opening, it's sort of a slow KG start where pieces are placed at these different optimal squares, and then one side breaks. Either black goes d5 or white strikes with d4. And if you're able to get that, if white gets it successfully, gets that edge. If black's able to break out, is able to neutralize white's opening advantage. I'm expecting d4 to happen very soon.
We're talking about edges. We mentioned times when we saw the Catalans that when one side strikes out, see fireworks on the board really quickly, super sharp, really quite entertaining tactical chess. Are we saying that when the breaks happen here, it won't quite be as explosive because we're actually still looking for a positional edge? Is that what we're expecting?
Yes, pretty much. And talking of positional edge, it's Magnus who gets there first in the center. Normally white, because it's so symmetrical, and you get the honor of the first move in chess. You were the first one to occupy the center, but Magnus, he's trying to use some tactics in his favor to get there. And here, breaking the tension with white might just backfire. Alireza Firouzja, he has options, but if he takes the pawn in the center, the black knight retakes. And here, for example, if white tries to continue munching on pawns, we would see a cool tactic after a knight trade. And the rook recapturing bishop takes f2. Watch out for this one, everyone at home. Always look for checks and captures. The king retaking would allow a queen check, a double attack, hitting the king, winning the rook on the next move. And Alireza, of course, he dodges that and instead develops his bishop. So watch out for that tactic to persist. Black's sniper on a7, still looking very, very strong. And yeah, it feels like Magnus should be relatively happy with the outcome here.
With the black pieces again, right? You get a successful d5 against the Spanish or against the Italian. You are a happy camper. Magnus's knight on d5, now the pawn on e5 defended. And that bishop on a7 is
Are we going to
beautifully
see
placed.
Alireza
Always,
winning this
always
game,
targeting the
please?
f2 pawn. Queen headed to f6 at the right point. The black knight can jump over to f4 or h4. I think this is a very, very pleasant opening outcome for Magnus. And for Alireza, he can't be pleased with what's just happened. Yes, he's got space on the queen side, but what's next?
Back to basics, Alireza. I've been watching his game since he burst onto the scene before he was a teenager, and he's been playing the Italian game, game in, game out. He went away from it for a few years, back to his favorite opening. That shows, believes that his nature, his style can hit Magnus Carlsen.
Little worried though, because maybe he'll be able to hit against Magnus Carlsen on the board. Fortunately, he's very close to getting into a 3-minute deficit. And okay, it's 9 versus 6 rather than 4 versus 1. I don't want to overhype the moment, but if Magnus recognizes this opportunity and continues to play quickly, he now has an excellent way of piling an enormous amount of pressure on Firouzja. In a game, don't forget, he must win.
There's so much more to chess. Of course, it's about good moves, but sometimes if you know that you spend a lot of time in the middle game, often choosing openings where you can land 20 quick moves and kind of clarify half the board, that just saves you a bit of time, puts it in the bank for later. Alireza, though, he loves maximum tension, loves using maximum time, getting down to that adrenaline-packed last few minutes.
I think it's time to get concerned about Alireza's clock right now. You know, it's early days in the game, but there are a lot of pieces. Nothing's been traded off. Only a set of pawns right now. So a lot of critical positions, decisions do lie ahead here. And it also shows the confidence and the style of the position, the nature of the game that is as right now. For Magnus, I think it just suits him. It's easy play, pieces are developed, no big weaknesses. Alireza, where are those complications? Where is that chaos that he thrives in? It's still a far way off. And the problem is, when and if that does happen, he will not have enough time.
Also, let's be honest, happening, the going down on the clock and really struggling under pressure, okay, can be a bit of a coincidence once, but multiple times it's becoming a little bit of a pattern, and it's something that Alireza needs to psychologically break out of. Otherwise, Magnus will continue doing this and using it as a weapon against him all throughout the grand final. If this is what Magnus has to do to win $250,000 and first place at the Esports World Cup, he will absolutely keep doing it. He's got no reason to change anything up.
Magnus, if it comes down to flagging, he's avoided that option twice now in games 2 and 3. If it comes down to the final game, the final Armageddon, flag is the only thing between him and first prize for Team Liquid. Magnus is going to do it.
Yeah.
Also, I think if at any moment Magnus is behind in a set, he definitely does it. He goes on to play that position 100 out of 100 times, which he did. I mean, there's so much history between these two players, and somewhere, you know, with Magnus's mindset, how he approaches this new generation, the challenge that he truly relishes, playing against Alireza, against Gukesh, Nodebek. You know, somewhere you get what he's doing. He wants to try to prove his domination with the moves on the board. He wants chess to speak for itself, and the clock, sure, it's a factor, but right now he doesn't, perhaps thinks that he doesn't need it. I mean, this storyline goes back. Meanwhile, a move on the board. Alireza does attack Magnus's knight. It moves forward. This is starting to get a little tricky for White.
We glimpsed Alireza's screen a moment ago. He just pushed his c-pawn forward 1 square, but his mouse was still hovering over this pawn. It looked like he was getting ready to push it yet again in order to block in Black's dart squared bishop. We talked about that sniper, some tricks in the air. It looked like he was going to play that, but again, not trusting his instincts. His mouse was ready to make that move, pushing the pawn forward to the c5 square, but he paused and changing his mind now. He first takes the Black Knight, will be replaced by a pawn, or maybe the other Black Knight, barring a sacrifice of the e5 pawn. And Alireza, clock time 4.5 minutes down. Something's just off with the pace. He needs to speed up, as well as try to land a blow on the board.
So good when his clock runs down, but again, not when he allows his opponent such a big advantage on the clock. We choose to recapture here with the knight.
Yet another pawn sacrifice, the second time Magnus has offered up this pawn in the center on e5. Again, it feels poisoned. Taking a bait like that, especially with a knight near your king, especially with the black dart square bishop poised, feels wrong. I think in the center there, Black's rook would open up, Black's light squared bishop would have jumped out the way, and it would have been disaster. So ultimately, he does play this idea that he was hinting at with his mouse over there, c5. And Black's bishop on a7, not too happy. I do like this last move from Firouzja, asking Magnus some questions.
d5 here has the potential to completely lock out that long diagonal for the bishop. If you really wanted to lock it down, which I don't, you could even push 5 to drive the point home. The light squared bishop on a great square, which is probably why it instantly gets traded off. And yeah, Magnus not particularly happy with the lack of scope for the dark squared bishop in the long run. Why not lash out at this straight away?
This is getting fun now because there's a lot of tension on that left flank, but also big knight jumps on that right side as well of the board. The white knight also heading to f5, but I like this approach by Magnus. He's targeting the base of that mini pawn chain to try to activate his bishop on a7. The one move that you definitely don't want to make is pawn takes pawn. You double up the a-pawns, you allow the bishop to slide over, pick up the c5 pawn, and come under a lot of pressure on the a-file. And it's under these pressure moments that mistakes happen. And for Alireza, an inaccuracy on the board tries to complicate matter under 3 minutes. e4. Lot of tension there. Which pawn is Magnus going to pick up?
Probably this pawn that's just pushed, given a question mark. Just want to mention, Magnus has not spent over 30 seconds for a single move so far in this game. That one he spends 22 seconds on. He opens up the lines of the rooks. One set of rooks leave the board. Don't really see what Alireza has in mind, though. That whole left flank is exploding. Pawn chain has been eroded. Black's bishop, it's only a matter of time before it gets back into the game, and it's going to come back with full force. Block situation and board as well against Firouzja.
The only explanation for this trade that he allowed and is allowing further on is that he did the rook lift, trying to line up the queen and the rook against Magnus's only semi-weakness, which is going to be the b7 pawn once the trades on b4 happen. Pawn takes pawn, rook takes pawn. Get to that, but that weakness is easily defendable by Magnus's rook sliding over.
Moves that you see right now, for example, forcing the knight away. If
I
the knight
think,
goes to
I
e6,
think,
for
I
example,
think Magnus
it's a very
Carlsen's
natural
been-
move because once the pawn on b4 drops,
Magnus
the
Carlsen
knight on
been-
e6 is naturally attacking the pawn on c5 together with the bishop. So this is playing into Magnus Carlsen's plan. It's making his moves a little bit more natural to make, which is not good when you have less than half the time of your opponent.
Those two white pawns are about to drop off. He's hoping here for Ruja to create some counterplay with his own knights, I guess. The white rook and white queen quite active. Magnus frowning. This is Magnus's longest think of the game so far. He knows that he has the advantage, a draw enough as well. And sometimes that's a situation you don't necessarily want to be in, where you're caught in two minds. Do you press an advantage, or do you just try to shore up the defenses? Magnus, meanwhile, what is the most risk-free move? I think that's what he's asking himself.
And that's the thing, right? Alireza is in a must-win game right now. It's a dead man's draw for him. It's as good as losing. So he needs to, even if he doesn't want to, create these dynamics on the board, even if that means objectively he'll end up in a worse position. He's ready to sacrifice material to get that piece activity, whether it's a knight planted on d6 or the open b line for his rook or queen. Alireza wants a fight, and Magnus ticking down on the clock.
I think almost breathing a sigh of relief that Magnus is taking so long, trying to work out how it's possible to maybe put the result of this game beyond doubt. It's also giving Alireza plenty of time to think. You can see he's not punching his shoulders quite as much as before. He's been able to use Magnus's time to hopefully calculate some of the moves that he's going to play too. I'm not sure it's enough to get him to play nice and freely, but you have noticed a slight change in his demeanor over the last 30 seconds or so.
Okay,
And there we go. Magnus doesn't play the best move according to the eval bar. Question mark appears, but he's trying to play safety first chess. We cannot blame him for that. And there we go. Alireza knows a rook trade would guide this game closer to a draw. That's not enough, so he has to gamble, has to speculate here. Keeps the rooks on.
But crucially, he did it instantaneously.
Have to do that for a bunch more moves.
Tension on the clock and the board. Rook e4. This does allow Magnus to again trade on b4 if he so wants. Magnus, he slows down. He does take. After rook takes pawn, that rook on d8 can slide one step forward and defend that b7 pawn. And still the attack on Alireza's weakness on c5 continues.
Alireza, he played the previous move instantly. He's gone back into the tank here. About 15-20 seconds invested and counting. Problem is that black bishop is so close now to breaking its way back into the game. Black knight coming back. The white knight's so far unable to get in.
You know, if you have to beat Magnus Carlsen, then you need to make the most of every single aspect and element of the game. You have to be up on the clock. You have to play the opening perfectly. Middle game, try to complicate things. End game, technique on point. And so far, the biggest problem in this match for Alireza has been the clock. Because in those final moments, we've seen the blunders happen.
It's beginning to look like the way to beat Alireza in this grand final is to give him choice. Because that is what Magnus Carlsen is using against him right now. I'm going to give you choices where you're trying to calculate when maybe the position and your clock certainly is calling for you to use your intuition a little bit more. Otherwise, you risk making mistakes in another minute. And it seems like 10 times out of 10, Alireza is choosing to hard calculate instead of trusting his intuition, which is odd because his intuition is so good. That's the reason why he is such a beast when his time gets low.
Check here.
Exactly. Mr. Intuition.
Wait,
and right now, Magnus has won a pawn. The black bishop is out. Most importantly, if the white rook goes to the top of the board with a check, black bishop can drop back and block. That doesn't look super healthy for Magnus, but it's only temporary, and the black bishop is going to save the day. Alireza struggling to find any attacking resources, any follow-up to that check.
Why?
And this is concerning, right? You make a move, you give up a pawn, your opponent takes the bait, and then you again go into a tank, make a move that you're not super happy with, and it turns out to be a blunder. Alireza coming in with a double attack, but there are checks that he needs to be careful about.
Taking massive risk here. There are two checks that are very tempting for Magnus Carlsen. The black rook now able to infiltrate on the first rank. Magnus leaned back. I think he spotted something. The black bishop can maybe even jump in and sacrifice itself. Something similar to what we showed earlier. Alireza smiling. He knows he's blundered. He spotted the refutation. Black has multiple winning moves here.
And Magnus starts with a flashy bishop takes pawn check on the board. And if this is captured, the knight will jump in with a check, forcing white's king to disconnect with the knight on g3. Knight d3 coming in, queen takes, knight coming in. Alireza cannot believe it. He is the master of tactics, but he's the one on the receiving end of this one. Magnus, super sharp today.
Under 1 minute, he's got to only a few seconds left. And look at this, walking forward with his king. He's now down 2 pawns, but this white king is simply not going to survive. The black king, in the meantime, protected by its army. The pawn will block now. And Magnus's queen can even block, and this one is going to be over. Magnus will surely not let Firouzja back off the hook there, and there we go. It's actually checkmate to end this game.
Checkmate on the board, and it started with bishop takes f2 at 3.5 minutes, plays 1. Magnus Carlsen takes the full point, and with that, the first set in this grand final. Advantage, Team Liquid.
Magnus Carlsen is crashing in on the Falcons. He's drowning the competition here. I mean, unbelievable what he's done in set 1. You know, wins in game 1, wins in game 4. The middle 2 games he could have pushed to flag Alireza, doesn't do it. And this was the brilliant move. Bishop takes pawn, the start of the end.
Yeah, beautiful awareness, tactical alertness. Magnus showing off his different gears there. He was in defensive control mode for so long. Suddenly, given an opportunity, he landed a blow, won 2 pawns, and unexpected to Firouzja, unexpected to me here in the commentary booth, he landed a checkmate even to end this game. Ruthless from the world number 1.
So it is 3-1 in set number 1. That means that Magnus Carlsen takes that home now. We should point out, if Firouzja is able to take set 2, it doesn't matter what the scoreline is. It could be 2.5 a half. It could be 2-all, and he wins on Armageddon. It doesn't matter. They would be 1 set all, okay? So that has got to be the goal for Firouzja right now. He needs to forget about what just happened and focus all of his energy on winning that second set. Let's go ahead and head back to the studio to break it down and see what Alireza has to do to come back.
Thank you so much, Caster. Set 1 is all Magnus Carlsen as he takes down Alireza Firouzja in 3-1 fashion. I'll remind everybody that Alireza joined or entered the day with not a single lost game in this tournament. Magnus, he hands him 2. One of those coming with an actual checkmate on the board, Maurice.
That is rare to see a top player actually hang mate in 1, but he was already busted in that position. And let me tell you, this was pure dominance by Magnus Carlsen. Game 1, clearly him. Game 2, he could have dirty flagged his opponent, and game 3 as well, as he was way up on the clock. He could have just made a bunch of moves, and Alireza would not have been able to keep up. But Magnus, all class, decided, I'm not going to win like that. Let me show you how I'm going to win. I'm going to mate you on the board.
Yeah, it's not over just yet. There's still at least one more best of 4 set coming our way where Alireza can try to equalize. But Ben Feingold, we have got to talk about this Magnus Carlsen. He said yesterday in the post-game interview, I'm readying my bow. I've got more arrows in the quiver, and I'm ready to take down another Falcon. So far, he's living up to that.
Yeah, this is by far the best that Magnus has played in this event. He saved the best for last, which he often does, making my prediction look silly as usual. I guess the ladies were right. And once again, Magnus wins.
It's that game 1. You give Magnus 1 single chance. He takes it 1-0 decisive fashion. But it's that second game for me, Maurice, that it goes exactly to the point you're making. Where Magnus, you can call it cocky, you can call it confident, you can call it classy. Any way you slice it, he is making a statement by not going for the flag against Alireza Firouzja.
Yeah, I think this first round is just so easy. It's just so easy for Magnus. Like, I'm feeling bad for Firouzja. I actually want the Firouzja to win that game. Probably he could have just gone with the draw. It's okay, but yeah, losing 2 games in 4 matches, drawing 2, is absolutely banger. it's a banger for Magnus Carlsen. Oh goodness. I hope Felicia bounce back in the next round. Interesting. Yeah, bro, so much in oh come on, Magnus. He just gave Felicia beautiful checkmate on the board. That was Felicia. I mean, after playing that queen to that square, he just laughed. All right. The king of tactics falling into a taxis himself. Oh, come on. Okay, so yeah, it is. It is what it is, bro. It is what it is. Let's see what is going to be happening on the next one, on the next phase. Come on, Magnus Carlsen, bro. Come on, stop being Magnus. Stop beating people like they mean nothing, bro. Look at. I mean, look at that check. Oh God. Like, look at that check. Look at that beautiful, brilliant sequence by Magnus Carlsen. He finds it, he goes for it, and he has already been beating Felicia on the clock. I mean, Felicia used to be king of speeches, but on this show today, he's just nowhere close to Magnus Carlsen. Magnus Carlsen play his move like every 30 seconds. So his move is here. All right, so I'm going to be pushing my move every 30 seconds. Like, he's just doing incredibly well. Come on, bro. Come on. Come on, stop beating people like that. All right, let's hear what this audience has to say about the game so far.
Any weakness in this illustrious game is when chaos is on the board. And Hikaru Nakamura showed that. If you can muck it up a little bit, you might have to play an inferior opening line that has tactical chances, but maybe you're at a deficit to start. That's what Hikaru did with the King's Indian. That's what he's going to have to do, Alireza, in order to maybe throw Magnus off kilter, as Magnus loves it when it's just him and we are just driving down the road or strolling through the park, and I'm going to kick your ass. That's what's going to happen.
So that's Alireza trying to make the comeback. Let's talk, though, about how Magnus Carlsen closes it out right here with the expectation that Alireza is going to come in with some new strategies, maybe some new creativity or a change of pace. How does Magnus just lock it up here and now?
For Magnus, it's more of the same. Play the same way he did in the first match. He knows he's a better player. He's played better. Magnus doesn't have to change anything. He just has to keep his cool, keep having the advantage on the clock, and hope that Alireza goes too far in trying to muck things up.
You know, and there was one thing I don't like what I'm seeing is how demoralized Alireza looks. Come on, man, bring it.
Yeah, we called you a favorite for a reason. You got yourself to the grand finals. Let's see you fight the world #1. Either way, Magnus Carlsen is up 1-0 in our total sets, but Alireza can strike back. Let's go to Mike for a word of what it looks like on the ground here at EWC.
Well, as you just saw, Magnus Carlsen took the first set 3-1. I'm here amongst the crowds. I can see people on their phones waiting with their chessboards to get autographs. But the big story is that Magnus Carlsen wanted to win, or he did not want to flag his opponent. And I've known the man for about 12 years. He wants the headline to read, I played this cool knight b8 tactic in game 1. I played bishop takes f2 in game 4. And that's how he wants to try to win this match. Also, a little bit of breaking news. As I was headed into the arena, I saw Hikaru Nakamura re-enter the arena with his second Chris Littlejohn. I asked Hikaru, hey, are you going to Alireza Firouzja's green room? Are you going to help him? Hikaru said to me, I'm going to go help him if he wants me to. So I don't know if Alireza is going to accept the assistance, but Hikaru has rushed back into the arena, and he is available for his teammate for Team Falcons.
That's the picture on.
Whoa. So for the Team Falcon, you mean Alireza can step down for Hikaru to come up and play against Magnus Carlsen? Is it possible? Like, I mean, Alireza is not going to do that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Alireza is not going to. Whoa! If somehow Hikaru is able to come on the board again and play Magnus Carlsen, yeah, it's going to be on another level. Like, it's not just going to be some easy game, because that man doesn't get old, at all. Like, he's going to come up. He's going to come up with some interesting move and some interesting works. I guess when he went home to rest, I'm sure he apparently will have been doing some matchup to catch up with Magnus Carlsen. Whoa. If that happens, it's just going to be fun. Like, it's just going to be fun to watch if Alireza is going to step down for Hikaru to come up on stage again. What is going to be?